Hi everyone, today I want to show you how you can use the formula SumProduct in Excel to find out schedule conflicts. You might recognize this functionality from Microsoft Outlook when booking a date in the calendar. Here we have some data showing the holidays, start and end dates for each person, and what we are trying to find out is if there is any conflict between the dates from people from the same department. We will do our formula in column H, and later in the video we will format the spreadsheet to show the conflicts between the dates. Let's get started. So to get started, let's call our function SumProduct, so equal sum, and then you choose SumProduct by pressing tab. And here, the first thing we want to do, we want to see if there is any differences between dates. So our start date and our end date. And for now, let's include all people in this formula. And we are not going to differentiate yet if they belong to the same team or not. So the first thing we need to do, we need to open an array. So by doing this, we are saying to the SumProduct that in our array we have more than one criteria and we want to meet them both. So the first one is going to be if the start date of this range, and let's lock it with F4, is less or equal than our end date. And let's also lock it by column. Let's close our array, or the first criteria. And in SumProduct, for us to say that we want to meet this criteria and another one, we can press the asterisk or the multiplication sign, and now we say what is the other criteria. We open the parentheses, and now we're going to say that our end date range, and let's fix it again, needs to be greater or equal than our start date. And let's fix it by column as well. Let's close with our parentheses, and let's close our formula by pressing the right parenthesis again. Press enter, and here let's see what is going on. Let's drag our formula down. So the result of our SumProduct is saying that are 3 people trying to book holidays at the same time. If we check manually, all these dates intersect with each other, and our SumProduct is saying that. One final criteria I want to put in our SumProduct is to split between teams. So if they are from the same team, I want them to flag a problem between dates they are trying to book. And if it's from a different team, I want this formula not to return us an issue in this case. So let's do that. So if we do asterisk to say to the formula and, we want another criteria. And let's go inside of this parenthesis that we just created and say like this range, and let's fix the range, is equal to a team, so E4. So now the SumProduct, if we fill this formula down, is going to say that there are 2 people trying to book holiday at the same time. This basically is John and Ari. So we can see now that in our formula, we already identified who are the people that are trying to book holidays at the same time. So now, one thing I like to do with this formula is to work with zeros and ones. It's just easier to visualize and do some calculations after. So what we can do here is say that we want this to be 1, and when the SumProduct doesn't identify any problems, we want it to be 0. So if we wrap around our SumProduct with some parentheses, and here we want to say that is greater than 1, and we know that our SumProduct before returned 2 if there is a problem, and 1 if there is no problem. So let's close our formula and let's press enter. Let's fill our formula down, and now we have true and false. So the same as saying 1 or 0. And we can actually convert these Boolean values to say 1 or 0 just by putting here 2 minuses and fill our formula down. And now we converted Boolean value to 1 and 0. So we can do a lot of stuff with these results. So for example, we can also say that we add here if all this formula, so it returns a 1. So if we press F9 is 1, let's press escape and come back to our formula again. If all this greater than 0, we want this to be checked, or the person that is evaluating if people can book holiday at the same time, they will get this flag as check. Otherwise, if it's not greater than 0, we don't want to return nothing. So let's press enter here and let's fill our formula down. And now we can see that we don't get any issues in row 5 from Lisa, because she's not trying to book holidays at the same time that people from her team, but in engineering there are 2 people trying to book holidays at the same time. So now that we build our SumProduct, what we can do is to try to create some visuals to reflect what we found with our SumProduct. So let's start with that. So let's rearrange column I, and here we can create some dates to reflect our start dates and end dates, like a calendar. And here we can choose the sequence formula. It's quite a useful formula. And here we can say in the first parameter that we want this formula to run in one row. The columns we can say is the same as days, so we want to see 14 days worth of data. In the next parameter, we want the start, so our first date to be the first date we have here, or the earliest date. So we can say that we want the minimum, or find the minimum date. And here we fix our array. Let's close that. Let's go to our next parameter, and the step is the same as saying we want our date plus 1, so increment by 1. Let's close our formula, and here what we need now is to format this range as a date. So short date. We can also customize this. So normally I choose the day and the month name, just easier to see. To help the person that is checking this, we don't want this to be static, we want this to be dynamic. So what we can do is to create here a scroll bar. Let's build it here on the top. And this scroll bar will allow us to move between these dates forward and backwards. So let's create here a help column, and we can hide it later on. And what we want to do here is say, go to the format control and say that our current value is going to be 1. Our minimum value is also 1. We want to look at 100 days. We can say these are days. We want it to increment by 1, and the pace change can be the same number as our columns. So we can have 14. We need to link this cell to our scroll bar. That is going to be A3. Let's press OK. And now what we want is to say that our mean is going to be incremented by whatever number. So we can say plus our help column that we just created. Let's fix this cell. Let's press enter. And now we can see that we start on the 17. So actually, let's wrap around our mean function, and we can say that we want -1 plus the number we have in our help column. So let's try that. So here, let's bring this down just to be easier to see. If we press on the right arrow, our numbers are starting to be incremented. And if we go backwards, we came again to our mean number. So this is the way to have a dynamic calendar in Excel. So now let's come back here to our first date. And something I like to see is colored bars to reflect actually there is a problem or if it's okay. So we can say that red or green. And also like to know that in this range, if there is a weekend, or identify what date's a weekend. So we can use here the weekday formula. And we need to select our date, and let's also lock it by row. So it goes down, doesn't drag with us, is only looking at this row right here. And in the second parameter, I like to choose the number 2. So number 1 is a Monday and goes through Sunday, so number 7. So let's close our function and see this one is a Sunday. And if we drag this formula to the end, we see that we have from 1 to 7 and starts again from 1, in this case to 6. So this one is be a Saturday. So we can actually use this formula in our conditional formatting. So let's copy this. Let's select the range we want to see this to be reflected. Let's go to Home, Conditional Formatting, Manage Rules. We want to create a new rule. we want to use conditional formatting based on a formula, and we did copy that formula right there. We can paste and say that this formula, if is greater than 5, so we know that if is 5 is from Monday to Friday, and if is 6 and 7, they are Saturday and Sunday, so the weekend. So now if we go to format, and we can set a pattern just to identify what is the weekend with color, and let's press OK, let's press OK again, let's apply, let's press OK again, and here we can see that 7 is a Sunday and is identified as a weekend, and this will visually say to us what dates are the weekend. So let's delete that, and actually now let's build what we want actually to see. So now what we need to do is to paint our conditional formatting for these dates right here. So again, let's select our range where we want this conditional formatting to work. Let's go to manage rules, and let's create a new rule, and you want this rule to be based on a formula. So what we need to do is create here an end Excel formula. So equal end, let's open parentheses, and let's try to define our conditions. So we have 3 conditions. The first one is saying that if this date, and let's lock it by row, is greater or equal than our start date, and let's lock it by column. The second parameter is if this date, let's lock it by row again, is less or equal than our end date, lock by column. And our final condition is that we want this to be painted, so we can use the weekday if it's not weekend. So because we already have conditional formatting for dates that are weekend. So what we can say is that this date, and let's look at again by row, and we choose the next parameter. We say we want number 2, so from Monday to Saturday, so 1 to 7. We want this to be paint if is less than 6. So if it's 6 or 7 is Saturday or Sunday. Let's close our function. Let's go to our format to choose the color. Here we can say that we want this to be splitted by row in white. So let's actually remove this first. And let's remove these 2. Let's go to fill to choose our color. Normally I put a custom green, so 19, 145 and 121. Let's press OK, press OK again, OK, and apply. Now we have our dates colored. So if you see here from the 16th to the 21st is being colored. It's not coloring 16 because it's a weekend, and we already defined the formula for that. Now the point of us building in SumProduct was to see if there was actually an issue between dates, so when people were booking the dates in the same timeline, and here is where we can actually reference to that conflict. So we are going to use the same conditional format from this one, and we can actually duplicate this rule. Let's go and edit this rule and say we want this to be based also in H4, and let's lock it by column, and we want to say if is different from 0, so these ones are different from nothing or 0. We want this to be red, so if this has check or some text in here, we can say that we want to use red to flag to the person that is visualizing that something is wrong or people are trying to book at the same date. So press OK, press OK again. Let's apply this rule, and now we can see that these 2 dates have a conflict with each other. So if I actually change this to start one day after the 25th, for example 26, and goes to the 2nd of June, there is actually no conflict between these dates or between the teams. And here we can actually see, if we go forward with our scroll bar, we can see when these people book their holidays. Hope you guys like this video. If you have anything to add or you'd like to see in the next videos or me to create, please comment down below and subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you next time.